Could you define specifically what you mean by imperialism?
When I talk about imperialism, I'm talking about the fact that there is a form of economic organization inside of this country and inside of this world. The form of economic organization inside of this country is one whereby the fundamental means of production, the factories, the mines, the basic economic infrastructure is controlled by a relatively small number of people. That on the other side you have labor, the persons who enter the economy and have nothing to do but exchange their labor, work, for wages. The wages are generally very small, just that minimum that is necessary to sustain them on a minimum level, and the rest of that is what we call surplus value. In a Marxist-Leninist analysis, that is surplus value is exploited, it's characterized as profits, it goes to the ruling class. When the domestic capitalists, the cats in America, the ruling class, enter other countries in two ways. One, they enter by financial penetration, that is to say investment in other countries. You see it everywhere, South Africa, Chrysler Corporation, all over the world. You see it with the wage price free situation that's taking place right now, for example. When they penetrate other countries through the use of the exportation of capital or direct investment in those other countries, and when they couple that, of course, with the use of this elaborate military machine to smash national liberation struggles that take place in other countries, which struggles might result, for example, in the expropriation of the ruling class over here, taking out taking their companies over, this kind of thing. So when I talk about imperialism, I want to put it, like in terms that I hope can be understood. I'm simply talking about capitalism leaving the borders of the United States, number one, through the mechanism of financial penetration and the acquisition of markets in those other countries, and the use of the fist, the gun, and the club, and the force of the armed military apparatus of the state to smash liberation struggles wherever they might occur in the world, because those liberation struggles are headed fundamentally in the direction of socialism and therefore are unalterably opposed to the continued existence of the capitalist rule and domain over the entire world. So that's what I mean by imperialism. It is the fundamental enemy. We understand that we are black, we understand that our oppression has a national character, but we also understand that if it were not profitable for the capitalist and the international capitalist to be called the imperialist, if it was not profitable for those elements to subject us to exploitation on the basis of our race, they wouldn't do it. It simply wouldn't make sense. So what I'm suggesting is to whatever extent we are discriminated against, and that's very clear to all of us, we've still got to recognize that fundamentally we're dealing with a system that is run on a logic that says we must extract as much profit as possible for those who own and control the means of production, and the hell with the rest of the world. So I'm saying that that's the fundamental enemy. The same Chrysler Corporation in America that can join forces with such things as the urban coalition and talk about redeveloping inner cities and solving those problems are the same Chrysler corporations or Ford Motor Companies which are exploiting and extracting surplus value from black workers under the apartheid system in South Africa, for that matter over the entire world. So that's what I mean, just generally speaking, Tony, about imperialism. It is our enemy. The people have the capacity, the people have the right, the people have the duty to rise up, to seize power, and to run this society in such a way as to produce not profit for the few, but to produce on the basis of meeting the needs of the people who live in the world.
Well, as a lawyer, you use the word to smash and destroy. What functionally could you do as a lawyer in terms of...
There's a number of things, Tony. I just want to cite one example, and I think the brothers could probably join in at some point in terms of this. I cite one example of a case that I was involved in. I was involved in a case called the James Johnson case in Detroit, where there was a black worker who was born in Mississippi who had been subjected to conditions of a colonialistic kind of form of upraising. He was born on a plantation and so on. This brother finally made it through in the course of his life up to about age 30. He found himself working in an automobile plant, a Chrysler Corporation plant in the city of Detroit. The conditions at the point of production where he was caught up in those contradictions were such that finally one day this brother got fired. He went home, got a carbine, returned to the plant, shot down 2 foremen and 1 job setter. We defended this brother. We had the following objectives in mind. One, we had the objective, of course, of demonstrating as clearly as we could to people the contradictions that exist, in terms of workers at the point of production. We exposed the conditions of the plant. We exposed the role of international imperialist corporations as being essentially exploiters of the surplus value of workers. We exposed the racial conditions, the colonial conditions, if you will, as Fanon writes about him in The Wretched of the Earth. We exposed the conditions of his upbringing. We demonstrated to the people that, in fact, this man was not responsible for those homicides, that, in fact, the Chrysler Corporation and the existence of a racist imperialist system which has denied him systematically every possible opportunity for productive participation in life were, in fact, the true culprits in this case. We were able to convince the jury through a number of mechanisms that this was, in fact, the case, and this man who shot down these 3 people was acquitted. The importance of that case was understood not only in Detroit, not only throughout the country, but indeed throughout the world. Even Time magazine had to give it a play. But my point is that that was a classic instance in which you go into court. You don't go into court on the defensive. You don't go into court saying that, like they style a criminal prosecution, the people of the state of New York or the people of the city of Michigan. We indicate to the jury the people ain't got nothing to do with no crap like this, that it ain't the people, that it's the state apparatus, the prosecutors, and the judges who are nothing but flunkies for the imperialist ruling class, They understood that. We demonstrated to the people what those conditions were. The people indicated that they had had their level of political consciousness raised to such a point that they were not prepared to simply blindly ratify a judgment that would call this man a criminal. He was not a criminal. The system is a criminal. The imperialists are the criminals, and they understood that. Classic way. So what I'm trying to say in closing, okay? A lot of people say that you cannot be revolutionary and be a lawyer. A lot of people say that when you work inside of the legal system, you're working as a reformist. I don't have that view. I don't think Hayward has that view. I don't think that Bill has that view. You go into the court and you try to do two things, particularly where there are people who are involved in struggle or where there are people whose concrete situation is one which can be used to educate. You go in to demystify the system. You go in to expose the contradictions of the legal system. You go in to exploit every possible option that still exists in this kind of like pre-revolutionary period. And I think that that's a very positive and, you know, like incredibly important function. There are other examples that possibly we can get into at a later time, but that concretely, brother, is what I mean.